Yep, I can see your screen, and I'm recording now anyway, so start whenever you want, and I'll trim it, of course,
Okay.
at the beginning of the actual start. Is how many of us are in here now? Looks like we're all pretty much here, everyone who was in the last one. So over to you.
I'm also going to paste a social link because it's quite useful. If anyone wants to copy and paste stuff or whatever. So first of all, can you hear me well?
Yes, I can hear you very well.
Oh, I want to talk a bit about git-extras. There are two reasons I want to talk about this. First is I have found git-extras to be kind of useful in my day-to-day activity, and second is that I want to learn more about it. This gave me an opportunity to read the manual, uh, well, as I should have been a long time ago. Um, so git-extras is a set of extra commands for Git, and I think yeah, and there's also a manual page for it, and it's installable on pretty much any platform that supports Git, and that is everything. I'm not going to go into details for installation, but I'm going to go now into some practical issues. So I'm going to use, for example, one of the open trials repositories, let's say processors, or maybe API. Okay, so first bits I'm going to share with you are probably more valuable from a higher level point of view. If you wanna just go and look at the Git repository and have some quick information about what's going on in there, you can do, oops, sorry, you can do Git info, and this is not entirely useful. It's just spitting a lot of information about remote branches, local branches. But you can script it and add it to add some more functionality. But you can also see the authors, and it shows pretty much everyone who has contributed to this repository, opening them up into your editor of choice in the terminal. Or maybe you can do this. I'm going to choose Vitor for this. And this is the entire contribution history of Vitors. It's quite a lot on the API. This is also useful in stand-ups, I imagine. And there's also a summary, sorry. And that's how you can see some aggregations, everything pulled from the Git log, from the Git status, and so on. One of the other interesting things, if you want to take a look at, for example, what was the most active part of the project of all time, there's a nice little command, git effort, and this really calculates everything, and I'm not going to look at it, and I'm going to explain the numbers soon. This above 20 is the number of commits, and is showing, for example, this Swagger YAML has 81 commits in total, spanning over 50 days. So it's 50 different days this file has been committed on. And it's definitely the most active file in our API, OpenTrials API repository. And so on. This might be useful to identify potential things to be first candidates for refactoring, or I don't know, your mileage may vary here. There's also a count option. This is not entirely useful, it's just showing the number of commits, but this is how you look at the count for the commit count for any of the active users in the repository. Okay, so this was for the information part, the looking at the repository, understanding what's going on in there. But the more practical things, and I'm going to start with the minor bits I'm really using very often, and one of them is git-ignore. And now let's take a look at the git-ignore. Ignore is, well, a lot of things. And let's say I'm just going to ignore all the YAML files, and don't worry, I'm not going to commit anything. And this just added the pattern to git-ignore and informed me that it ignored the existing YAML files in the repository. This is somehow more comfortable than opening up git-ignore or echoing something at the end of the file. But if you have a new project, I don't know how many of you have heard of gitignore.io or something like that. This is a project aiming to generate gitignore specific to different kinds of frameworks. And it's entirely embedded into this git-extras. This is a whole list. List pagination might be improved a bit, but you can see it can generate, it can automatically generate a gitignore for a MATLAB project or a Reddit or a Rails project or whatever else. And whenever you start a new project, which doesn't happen very often, you can generate the gitignore, so you hopefully you won't have to add a lot of files afterwards. Speaking about adding files, that's a nice little thing, especially useful for those of you who maintain libraries or who develop libraries. And this is the changelog feature. Every time you release a new version, you have to write something in the changelog. Ideally, you write something in the changelog explaining what happened since the last release, and its changelog is creating a changelog if you never run it before. And after creating this changelog, if you just come here and grab a version number, and this is a timestamp, and then you can edit the changelog accordingly. And you get out of it, then for any subsequent commits, you can just run git changelog after 3 more commits. It does this, well, it doesn't do anything different because I have the same range of commits now, but if I do this on new commits, I can just complete the changelog in a very easy way. Okay. Now I'm going to talk a bit about a forbidden bit, the dark arts of Git, which is rewriting history. So many times I've committed under the wrong name or email, and this was especially true when I had to work on closed GitLab instances or whatever else. So I had to have a specific email. But it's also true on GitHub when you have your name wrong, for example, after a new operating system installation. And there is this git reauthor. Then I can't show any help for it. I don't want to use it, actually. But git reauthor is able to, yeah, I can't show any help for it. It's able to rewrite the email for a specific user. For example, it has an option, git reauthor old email equals and correct, I think. I think this is missing from my git-extras version. It is in the manual. I used it before, but might be outdated. Anyway, moving on to things you want to remove from Git, and this is not a common case of people committing password, secret files, and so on. There's a command git obliterate, and this takes a file as a parameter. And let's say I want to get rid of the Docker file and kill it from the project and its history. I can just do git obliterate Docker file and the Docker file is dead and gone. I don't really want to do that, but this is just for the sake of the argument. Again, getting back a bit to people releasing libraries and putting up zip versions of projects somewhere on documentation website or whatever. There's it a file and takes an argument, but it's entirely optional. Just building an archive on the current branch I'm on and dumps it somewhere. And I imagine this being useful in a scenario where we have a release script having executing a couple of commands and usually have to tar. It's not a really big deal, but it's kind of nice to be able to do a lot of things by using it and its plugins. And just staying a little bit longer in the housekeeping zone of git-extras, there's a git lock the Docker file, and now I locked Docker file. It's listed here. I cannot modify it unless I do this unlock Docker file. And I would personally use this on configuration files or things that really never have to change. Well, they do have to change, but not that frequent. So that was about the lock and unlock feature of git-extras, which everything I'm doing here is already implemented in Git, but those are just some really cool, handy aliases for using them more easily. And I think we have some GitHub pages, but well, that's a pretty common scenario. The GitHub pages branch on projects. It's also able to create all the setup necessary. It's not. It should be. I really need to check my versions on this. Okay, I'm just going to go back a bit. So let's say I start working. I just selected in my head. I selected a couple of repositories I haven't forked yet on my account. So let's say I want to fork this new OpenTrals Airflow, which is the Airflow configuration for OpenTrals, and provides git-extras provides me with a nice command. Open else. So just created a new project in my GitHub namespace and kept the origin as my GitHub account and the upstream as the origin of the fork. And would be a bit nicer if those were like git SSH URLs, but that's easily modifiable. Just saves me a bunch of clicking around and extra commands I have to issue. And since I'm on this, I can play a bit with it. Branching after forking, you probably want to work on a feature. So there's also git checkout -b to create a new branch, but this also creates it on the remote, I guess. At least that's what I say. I'm not using it usually. So I'm just creating a new branch here to update README. And yeah, I'm not logged in using SSH and just keeps annoying me with this. There's a delete branch command. Hopefully I can see something. Yeah, git delete branch. It deletes a branch from the local and remote repository. And the most useful one probably is git rename branch, which doesn't have any manual entry. And I don't have the command. This is very, very weird. And on the branching topic, I want to mention git squash. So git squash takes a branch reference. So I have a feature branch called feature add something new, and I want to squash it onto master. I can just git squash feature blah, my hypothetical feature branch, and takes it onto master, but the branch doesn't exist in this case. Difference between, for those of you who don't know what squash does, the difference is between this and merging, that merge will take all the commits and put them on the master branch, and squash will just take everything on the referenced branch and put them into one single commit, and then add that one single commit to master. Okay. On a bit longer in branching area, and explain this git back. This is going back one commit in history. So git log, and last commit is October 20. And if I just do git back again, it should take me, just removes the last commit. And if I look at the staging area, they are staged. It's more like a reset. It's an easier to remember reset command. I also can take a parameter git back 2, goes back 2 commits and unstages the things. If you just wanna remove completely, there's git undo, and this also unstages. And the difference between them is that this doesn't take care of the removing commit and staging. This just clears everything out. You can delete, and if you delete a file now, it's like they were never added to the project. And this also takes a number argument, for example, 3. I can undo 3 of the last commits. And if I just do git log now, there's a lot of history, I don't know. We're very back in history now. Okay, let's go to my favorite git PR. I'm going to API. Oh, sorry. I'm going a bit to GitHub now. I think I have to open pull requests on the API. Not me, but somebody. I don't remember. No, it's okay. There's an open pull request on OpenTrust. Enable secure cookies 4 days ago. This would be kind of useful. And first go to master. And after going to master, I can git PR, and the number of the pull request is 535. And I have to specify, if it's not the origin remote, I have to specify the origin I'm looking for. And in this case, my origin is named OKFan. Okay. So what happens now is that Git went to GitHub, looked for pull request with the number, and checked out locally the branch number, the URL corresponding to that pull request. And now this is very, very useful when I do code review, because often I want to look at the code submitted on my local machine and not on the GitHub interface. Just look at it. If I want to test it, I want to kick the tires a bit, I want to destroy it sometimes. And this is when I do this git PR, number of the pull request, and name of the remote. I take it locally, I build it, and I play with it. And obviously, if I do this a lot of times. I have a lot of PR branches. Let's see, now I have PR, lots of them, and I don't want to delete them manually. So there's a git PR clean, I think clear. I don't want to do this because it might delete the remote branches as well, and this is one PR that wasn't already merged. And I have just a couple more tricks. Git-extras also has a command for opening pull requests. I had a pull request pending, well, not open. I wanted to open a pull request live here. That is actually a pull request for the processors, but figured I want to take another look at it before doing that, so I'm not going to open pull request now. But this is command for it. Oh, sorry. And just prompts for the title of the pull request and then the other pull request details. And you can specify the remote you're opening the pull request against. Pull request against the open trials remote. And failed to push. This branch was already taken from the was already a pull request, so it's probably a bit confusing for Git. Yeah, 2 more tricks up my sleeve now. Let's go back actually. Master, have git rep. Oh, sorry. And now we can just type git commands if we have a lot of housekeeping to do, merging and squashing and rebasing and whatever else. Just enter git repo and here's anything you want to do with git just without writing git in front of it. You're in the git prompt. And look at things, just don't write any git prefix your commands. And also they don't stay in the command history, which is not something we always want. And the last one is open trial servflow. Okay. Git force clone. Do this manually without pasting the URL. Okay. What I'm trying to do now is to clone this repository, although I have it already cloned. I want to do this, and git force clone will take care of destroying the existing repository and refreshing it entirely. And of course it failed. I'm gonna go back to the git extras here. Well, the GitHub project actually. And there's a command page with all the commands added to Git by git extras. So what was the one that I haven't found? Force clone. Is that correct? Yeah, there is a git force clone. Not in my version, but there is a git force clone somewhere. So for those of you who want to try speeding up the Git workflow a bit, there's this git extras repository. I'm going to paste it on Slack for the people wanting to test it, and there's an installation page. And here we have a whole bunch of Linux flavors and how you do it on a Mac and how you do it on Windows. On Windows, it is a bit more manual work, but it's still doable. Also BSD, I'm building from a source. I'm going to stop now and ask for questions and feedback, and probably somebody else has some Git tricks to share, because it would be very, very nice for me to learn something new as well. Yeah, anyone?
Thanks a lot. That's super useful stuff. Yeah,
Sorry,
that's
I
brilliant.
couldn't hear you. Okay, I'm gonna ask a question now. Um, Anyone has a preferred way to deal with pull requests, open pull requests that have to review other than looking on the diff in the GitHub UI?
Like you, I've used an extension for Git called Hub, um, which is an old extension which I think GitHub themselves maintained, and it does a similar thing, not quite as nice as GitHub Extras, where you can create a fork, you can check out a pull request by pasting the URL to the pull request into the command, and it does a similar thing than that PR thing. But I think the PR thing's a little bit nicer, especially the cleanup tool is really cool. And then either I look at the PR in code in my text editor, or I look at it in GitHub, depending on the complexity of the PR and whether I need to test it or not.
Um, yeah, I imagine this Git extras might be able to do some more things related to GitHub integration, but I probably have to have some Git options configured in my global Git config, or at least local Git config. And since they weren't there, it's just attempted to use the HTTPS version of GitHub URLs. Okay. Anyone else having anything to share, to comment? Anyone else who is going to open up a request using git-extras today?
That's a good question.
Yeah.
It looked really good. It's really great. It was really eye-opening for me. I'm going to try and use it,
Yeah.
but I probably won't open a pull request today.
Yeah, I found it really useful for when you have a lot of Git work to do or minor additions to repositories, and you don't want to end up with a lot of commands to do just a small thing. So this really simplifies things a bit, and you can only see it in the long run, I think. Except for the PR thing, the PR bit is really useful instantly.
Okay, so I'll stop recording seeing as there's no more questions. Thanks a lot, Victor. That was really, really great. Thank you for spending the time on it for us.
Yeah, thank you for being here. Comments didn't really work.